Hey, there is a lot going on in the news right now, and so I want to comment on some of those things. But I also want to comment about the importance, in my opinion, of plain speaking. Um, but I do want to comment if just a little bit about some of the news items because I try to make my channel as topical as possible. I think it would be remiss of me not to mention the fact that today Professor Stephen Hawking has passed away at the age of 76. He was one of the world's most renowned scientists. He has been, in fact, described as the most high profile scientist since Albert Einstein, which is quite something. I have a brief history of time, and I've had this for about 17 years now, in fact. I still haven't read it cover to cover, which is something. I'll just say a few words about Hawking because it's a big story because he was such a high profile individual. One thing I always liked about Stephen Hawking was very often with very intelligent people, there's a slight pompousness there. There's a slight um, almost snobbery. With Stephen Hawking, he was always down to earth in the sense that he had a great sense of humor. That's something that was always noticeable about him, and he also transcended academia into popular culture. He appeared on The Big Bang Theory, he appeared on The Simpsons, had a great sense of humor. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things said about Professor Hawking in the coming days. I'll be buying uh, a broadsheet newspaper tomorrow to get a double page obituary of which, of course, there will be. Other news at the moment, there is students protesting in the United States to push for gun legislation. I support them absolutely. I think it's very, very important. And my position on that is absolutely in favor of common sense gun regulation. Um, and Before I come to the main issue, well, related to the main issue, which is Russia and what's going on here. The other big story is that Rex Tillerson has now stepped down as Secretary of State to be replaced by Mike Pompeo. So I imagine there will be a lot of talking points in the States around that. Now, to come to the issue of Russia, um, I've already made a few videos about this, so there's no need to go over all the details. But the latest developments is that we are going to give a week, apparently, for 26 Russian nationals to leave the country. What I find astonishing is that these people are acting as spies basically, and but we're giving them time to leave. It's like if we have information that these people are in the Russian security services. I mean, it seems obvious to me, that they need to leave. Of course, there's going to be retribution in Russia. British diplomats are probably going to be uncomfortable right now, and British journalists are probably going to be under pressure. If we do go ahead and block Russia today, as I believe we should, then of course there will be a backlash against the BBC and other Western outlets. That's unfortunate, but it's the price that's going to have to be paid. I imagine British journalists in Russia right now will be anticipating this, and it's unfortunate. I feel for them, but we have to take tough action. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to repeat what I've already said, but I guess related to this subject, tensions are very high over this right now. As the ambassador to Russia has said, the British ambassador to Russia, this is effectively the next level down from war, basically, to assassinate. Um, Skripal had British citizenship. To assassinate or attempt to assassinate a civilian on British soil is a very serious matter, and that is potentially endangering a lot of British lives as well. Now, thankfully, that hasn't happened so far, but the repercussions are there, the implications are there. I have to admit, I have very little patience with people who, even now, are playing the narrative of the Kremlin. They're saying things like, well, they're going out of the way to, just blame the West first, blame Britain first. And that no matter what the situation, no matter what the track record. As if the Litvinenko case didn't happen 12 years ago. That they're acting like, you know, Russia's totally innocent. I mean, how naive can you be? How utterly naive can you be? Just look at the track record of Putin's Russia. It speaks for itself. Um, Apparently, Russia's been demanding to see the evidence. Why on earth would you do that? I mean, put it this way: if you get a thief who steals from a burglar, let's say, who steals from someone's house, they're arrested by the police, and they say, "Oh, show me the evidence." It's stupid. I mean, why would you? It's like letting the wolf guard the chickens. Give me a break. I mean, that is absurd. It is absurd on so many levels. Anyway, with I was thinking about this situation with Jamie Carragher and the whole backlash from that. One more point I would add to that incident: the father was acting like a paparazzo. Apparently he's now moderated a bit and said he doesn't want the guy to lose his job. Maybe because he knows that he himself is now being scrutinised for his reckless driving. But I want to just say a few words about honesty, about candid speaking. I think we put a lot of focus on etiquette, and there's good reason for that. It kind of marks you out as a reasonable person if you're polite. And I think there is a place for that. I really do. But sometimes you have to call a spade a spade. So, for example, I'll be honest, on diplomatic language when I have called certain people useful idiots for Putin. It's not polite, it's not nice, but in this situation, I believe that honesty is more important than the niceties. If you are towing Moscow's line, if you are saying, "Oh, what about Iraq? What about Libya?" and just pointing out to things that really have no relation to this, in order to say, "Oh, well, the British government always lies," in order to then toe Moscow's line, then yes, I do consider you a useful idiot for the Kremlin, because what RT does is it holds up people who have this mindset and says, "Oh, look, the British are skeptical of their own government," right? We're a democracy. It's people have a right to dislike or criticize the government. That's not what I'm talking about. All I'm saying is just don't pander to Russia when you do it. That's all. So people saying, towing Russia's line. Oh, they just want evidence. Wake up. Seriously. I mean, that's like that's like the burglar asking for evidence. Putin's hands are all over this. Of course, he's not going to admit it. Well, I mean, why would he? That's ridiculous. I think this just comes down to common sense. Look at Russia's track record. Look at what it's capable of. It's a very powerful country. It's not taking our ultimatum seriously. That's why we really need to act on this. I don't think we should even think about blocking RT. We should just do it. Of course, they're going to whinge and bitch about it and say, "Oh, look, this is an attack on free speech." But not when they're being used as a weapon. We can still have a plurality of opinion. And in point of fact, there is still a wide plurality of opinion in this country. There is. Now, I have been very critical of segments of the British media, and I do not unsay a single word I have said. I've been very vocal in my criticism of the tabloids. I stand by all of that. But I still maintain that there is more plurality and scope of different opinions in this country than there is in Russia. It's dangerous to criticize Putin in Russia. It is not dangerous to criticize Theresa May in Britain. There's simply no comparison. And if you think there is, you're just clueless. You could say most of the media is right wing. As I make it, it's probably about 60%. If you take all the newspapers and look at, broadly speaking, their political angle, it's about 60-40. 60% right wing, 40% left wing, if we want to be so crude and simplistic as that. Um, But people are saying, "Oh, Corbyn's being treated unfairly. He's just asking for due process." At a time when the country is under attack, you need to show a unified front. Some of the questions that Corbyn is raising are legitimate. Yes, it is legitimate to ask where the Conservatives get their money from, and Russian oligarchs and all the rest of it. Those are legitimate questions, but there is a time and a place. And Corbyn would do himself a lot of favors if he just came out and said, "We also condemn Russia's belligerent behavior." Why will he not do that? Why is Corbyn always rushing to defend anyone who attacks his country, or at least rushing to play the devil's advocate? And yeah, he's not outright saying, "I support Putin," but Corbyn always does this. He always plays the devil's advocate, and he always plays their narrative. And I think that is despicable. This is a man who aspires to be in the most powerful office in this country. I don't think he's fit for the job. Even John McDonnell has recognised that RT, for example, poses a threat. So we need to be anyone who is patriotic in any sense, whether you're left wing or right wing. If you have any notion of caring about this country, you need to see that for what it is. Um, I'm not suggesting that Jeremy Corbyn be sent to the Tower of London as a traitor. I'm not saying that, but this is not the time to be scoring political points, and that's exactly what he was doing. He needs to back Theresa May. He could disagree with her other times, but he needs to back her on this, because what RT will do is they will look for internal divisions and they will use it against us. He is playing their game. He might not realize it, and that's giving him credit, saying that he's being naive rather than ma- 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 malicious. Um, but people might say I'm being too harsh, saying things like Putin's useful idiot and tools of the Kremlin, etc. I'm using hawkish words. I don't care, because this is my honest opinion. I do believe that we are under attack by the Russian state. I think the evidence is overwhelming. I think it's been overwhelming for a very long time. Even before the Skripal case, what RT's been doing for years has been candidly obvious. So, yes, I'm aware that I'm coming across as hawkish, but to be honest, there comes a time when you have to put your conviction before niceties, and you have to put your conviction before how you're portrayed. Um, Corbyn is obviously doing that. Um, do I respect him for it? Not particularly. He's being honest to himself, and I suppose it's better that he is honest about what he believes in rather than putting on a false front. Okay, I'll give him that. But this is not the time to be attacking the Conservative Party. It's the time to be saying, yes, we agree Russia's behaviour is belligerent. It's not good enough just condemning the incident without naming Russia. I mean, why is Corbyn so determined at every single chance to play the devil's advocate? This is a man who, and maybe I'm going off on a tangent now, but I may as well throw it into this. This is a man who would not condemn the IRA directly, and he wouldn't to Corbyn supporters. He would not do it. A generic condemnation is not the same. This is a man who is against shoot to kill of jihadist terrorists. This is a man who refuses to condemn Russia directly. Um, Yet Corbyn claims to be a great advocate for human rights. Look at Russia's track record on suppression of dissent. Corbyn praised Castro when he died. That is not a defender of human rights. So I think in some ways, people say Corbyn's a decent man who is perhaps a bit naive. I sometimes wonder. I sometimes wonder. You cannot claim to be all about human rights whilst praising left wing dictators. And yes, you can accuse Theresa May of being too close to the Saudis. I believe she is. I believe we are as a country. It makes me very uncomfortable. But Jeremy Corbyn cannot preach about human rights and, being holier than thou when he has a track record that he has. And, he has appeared on RT himself several times. If Jeremy Corbyn had any integrity, he would say that was a mistake. I'm not going to appear there again. And if he appears once more on RT, as far as I'm concerned, well, as far as I'm concerned, he's already discredited himself. But Um, you know, I came across one post that really pissed me off because this guy was saying, "Oh, RT is just a network. It's just another network." Seriously, wake up. And the guy was trying to defend Corbyn's position. People are just so astonishingly naive. You don't have to be ultra right wing. You don't need to be a conservative. You don't need to be, um, blindly supportive of the BBC or CNN or anything else of the sort to see what Russia is doing. It's just common sense. Because the fact of the matter is, Russia felt it was humiliated after the Cold War. Russia's getting its payback. So Russia saw Skripal as a traitor. Russia's response to traitors is to take them out. That's a track record. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work that out. But why is that a problem? It's a problem because they done it on our soil, which was a disrespect to our national sovereignty, and they were putting British lives at risk as well. Look at the police officer who's now in critical condition. So I really have little respect for people who are even now chirping Russia's narrative.